Names to avoid confirmed. Now writing the story with all new names. Vera, narrator, 68, Neil, son, Sheila, daughter-in-law, Tyler, grandson, Lacey, granddaughter-in-law, anchor. Location, Ohio. The coffee was already cold when I sat down with it. I'd poured it 20 minutes earlier, but by the time I got to the kitchen table, the one I'd had since 1989, my daughter-in-law had already claimed the only chair with the good back. So I stood at the counter, drank it standing up like I was waiting for a bus. That was a Tuesday in October, 14 months after they'd moved in. I didn't say anything. I never did. Not right away. I just stood there watching her scroll through her phone with one hand and eat the last of my blueberry yogurt with the other. The kind I bought specifically because Neil can't stand blueberries. The kind I'd had every Tuesday morning for 11 years. She didn't know that, and by then I'd stopped believing it would matter, even if she did. They'd arrived the previous August with 2 cars, a U-Haul, and a story about the lease falling through. Neil called from the driveway. "Mum, I know it's short notice." It was 11 on a Sunday morning. I hadn't even finished my second cup of coffee. "We just need a few weeks, maybe a month, just until the new place is ready." I said, of course. I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "There's plenty of room." There was plenty of room then. It was my house, a 3-bedroom colonial on Claremont Drive that I'd bought with my husband Roy in 1986. Roy passed in 2014. After that, it was mine alone. The mortgage paid off, the deed in my name, the taxes current, every receipt filed in a box in the hall closet that Roy had labelled in his careful handwriting, "House." Important. A few weeks became a month. A month became 3. By December, the guest room held Tyler's weight bench and Sheila's seasonal wardrobe, and I had been quietly relocated to a corner of my own life. It happened the way water gets into a basement, not all at once, just a slow, patient seep. First it was the thermostat. Sheila liked it warmer. I'd find it pushed up to 74 degrees even in November when I'd kept this house at 68 since 1987 because Roy ran hot and I never changed the habit after he was gone. I turned it back down. She turned it back up. We did this for 2 weeks before I stopped bothering. Then it was the cabinet above the stove. That was where I kept my good mixing bowls. The ceramic set from my sister Helen, who passed in 2009, hand-painted, irreplaceable. One afternoon I reached up and they were gone. Moved to the garage, it turned out, because Tyler needed the cabinet for his protein powders and supplement containers. 12 of them, lined up in a row like a pharmacy shelf. I found the bowls stacked on the workbench beside the lawnmower. Dusty. One lid cracked. I brought them inside without a word, washed them carefully and put them in my bedroom closet instead. That felt like something, like surrender with a receipt. By spring, I had learned to navigate around them. I ate early or late to avoid the kitchen when Sheila was in it. I watched my programs on the small television in my bedroom because the living room had become Tyler's gaming territory. Cords across the floor, pizza boxes on the side table. I'd refinished by hand in 1994. I stopped having coffee in the mornings at the kitchen table because the chair was always taken or the counter was always cluttered with Sheila's protein shakes and Neil's work folders. I moved through my own house like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome without knowing it. The thing about getting older is that people start talking around you, not to you, around you, like you're a piece of furniture that might tip over if addressed directly. Neil would say things like, "We should probably look at getting the gutters cleaned," without asking me. Sheila would say we really need to update the pantry situation, when what she meant was she'd already bought new shelving that I hadn't approved. I noticed everything. I just hadn't decided what to do about it yet. The app was the thing that made something in me go still and cold. I came home from Helen's grave one Saturday morning. I go every month, just to sit there for a while, bring whatever's in bloom in the yard, and the front door wouldn't open, not stuck, locked. A new lock, a keypad, silver and flat, replacing the brass knob I'd had since we replaced it after a break-in scare in 2001. I stood on my own front porch and pressed the old key against a lock that no longer had a keyhole and just looked at it for a moment. Tyler came to the door when I knocked. He had his headphones around his neck and a look on his face that mixed embarrassment with the particular blankness of someone who hadn't thought something all the way through. "Oh, right, sorry, Grandma. I'll get you the code." He punched 4 numbers into the pad. 1986. The year the house was built, or maybe the year Neil graduated high school. He didn't say which. Sheila explained it to me that evening like it was a gift. "It's so much safer, Vera. No more lost keys, and you can let in the repair people remotely if you need to." She showed me the app on her phone, the one she and Neil had downloaded, the one that logged every entry and exit from my house, every door opened with a timestamp and a notification sent directly to her phone. "You'll want to download it too," she said. I didn't download it. What I did was go to my bedroom, sit on the edge of Roy's side of the bed, I still call it his side, 12 years later, and hold very still for about 10 minutes. There is a particular kind of anger that doesn't shake you. It settles. It gets heavy and quiet at the bottom of you and just sits there, waiting. I thought about the bowls in the closet. I thought about the thermostat. I thought about the mornings I'd eaten breakfast standing up in my own kitchen. Then I thought about the grey metal box in the back of my closet, behind my winter coats, on the shelf where Roy bolted a piece of plywood for extra storage in 1991. The box with the combination lock 301422, our anniversary date, that held everything. The deed, the title, the paid-off mortgage statement from First Federal dated March 2009, Roy's will, notarized twice because he didn't trust that once was enough. A letter he'd written me the year he was diagnosed with the heart condition, before we knew how it would go. "This house is yours, Vera, all the way yours. Don't let anyone tell you different." I hadn't opened that box in 3 years, but I knew exactly what was in it. Let them have the app, I thought. I have the paperwork. It was a Wednesday when Sheila said it. Neil was at the kitchen table. Tyler was somewhere upstairs. I had come in from the backyard where I'd been cutting back the rose bushes, gloves still on, clippers in hand, when she said she wanted to talk to me about something. She had printed out a brochure. Meadowbrook Place, it said. Senior independent living, with the word independent doing a lot of heavy lifting for what was clearly a facility. I could see a photo of a woman my age smiling next to a plant in a sunlit common room. "We've been thinking," Sheila began. She had a way of starting sentences with "we" that managed to exclude me from the "we" entirely. "The house is getting a little tight. And you've had some moments lately, Vera. The stove thing, forgetting the pharmacy pickup. And we just think maybe something more structured would be—" "What stove thing?" I said. She glanced at Neil. "Last month, you left a burner on." I had left a burner on. Once, for 20 minutes, while I was in the backyard and forgot I put water on for tea. Tyler had also, in the past 6 months, flooded the upstairs bathroom by leaving the tap running, reversed the car into the garbage cans twice, and set off the smoke detector trying to make grilled cheese at midnight. No one was handing Tyler a brochure. "The stove burner was once," I said. "In 40 years in this house." Neil ran a hand along the back of his neck. He had Roy's hairline and his father's habit of avoiding eye contact when he was ashamed. "It's just a thought, Mum. Meadowbrook is really nice. Lacey's friend's grandmother lives there. She loves it. Does she own her house?" He looked up. "What? The grandmother? Did she own her house before she moved to Meadowbrook?" A silence. "Because I do," I said. I pulled off my garden gloves slowly, one finger at a time. "This house, I own it. My name is on the deed. Your father and I paid it off in 2009, and he left it to me in his will because he knew I'd need the security and he trusted me to keep it. I set the gloves on the counter. So when you say the house is getting tight, what you mean is that you'd like more space, and what you're proposing is that I give it to you. Neil's mouth opened. I'll think about it, I said, and I left the kitchen. I did think about it. I thought about it all that evening, moving through the house that suddenly felt both entirely mine and entirely invaded. I thought about it when I passed the wall of family photos in the hallway and noticed that 3 of the frames I'd hung, Roy and me on our honeymoon in Gatlinburg, Neil at his high school graduation, a picture of my mother's house in Indiana, had been taken down and replaced with a large framed print that said, Home in metal letters. I thought about it when I opened the refrigerator and found a sticky note on my leftover chicken soup. Vera, please label and date your items. We're trying to keep track of freshness. Thanks, my soup, in my refrigerator. I went to the hall closet and took down Roy's box from the back shelf. The combination still turned smooth as it always had. Inside, the documents were in the order I'd kept them since 2009, deed on top, then the mortgage discharge, then the title insurance policy, then Roy's will with the yellow sticky tab I'd put on the page that said the property located at 412 Claremont Drive in its entirety, to my wife Vera Ann Collier. His signature at the bottom in the blue ballpoint pen he always used, because he thought black ink looked too formal. I sat with the box open in my lap for a long time, long enough for the light in the room to shift from afternoon to early evening, long enough to know that the decision had already been made. I just needed to do the part that came next. I called Lacey first. She answered on the second ring, the way she always does, like she'd been waiting. She's 26, Roy's granddaughter from his first marriage, but she's called me her grandmother since she was 4, and I have never once corrected her. She has his eyes and more sense than anyone else in the family combined. I need a name, I said. An attorney, someone who handles real estate and property law, someone good. A pause. Then, Grandma Vera. What happened? It wasn't a question. I told her. Not everything. I didn't have the words for all of it yet, but enough. The app on the door. The brochure. The sticky note on my soup. She listened without interrupting, which is rare for someone her age, and rarer still for someone who cares as much as she does. I know someone, she said. Her name is Peggy Oakes. She's helped 2 people I know. I'll text you her number. Thank you, Grandma. Her voice went soft in that way that still catches me off guard. You don't have to justify yourself to them. I know that now, I said. I called Peggy Oakes the next morning. She had an office on Elm Street, above the insurance agency, in the same building where Roy had gotten his eyes checked for 20 years. I told her that felt like a sign. She said she'd take it. We met on Friday. I brought the box. She was maybe 50, practical and precise. With reading glasses she pushed up on her head when she was thinking. She went through every document without rushing, without making me feel like a problem to be managed. When she finished, she looked up and said, You have every right to remove them. There's no lease, no rental agreement, no formal arrangement of any kind. They're guests. Guests can be asked to leave. They'll say I'm being cruel, that I'm throwing out my family. You're not throwing anyone out, she said. You're reclaiming your home. The law doesn't call that cruelty. It calls that property ownership. She pushed her glasses up. How long do you want to give them? 30 days, I said. That's fair. That's more than fair, she said. Let me draft the notice. I signed it with the same blue ballpoint pen I'd used on Roy's Christmas cards for 20 years. My hand didn't shake. On the drive home I stopped at the grocery store. I bought blueberry yogurt, 2 of them. I put my name on both, with a black marker right there in the parking lot. Vera, just that, clear as anything. When I got home, Neil was in the garage looking for something. He asked where I'd been. Running errands, I said. He nodded and went back to whatever he was doing. Sheila was on a call in the living room. Tyler was upstairs. No one looked closely enough at me to see that anything had changed, but it had. Lacey came by that Sunday with a bag from the bakery on Fifth, coffee cake, the kind with the cinnamon crumble on top that she knows I like, and we sat at my kitchen table together in the afternoon when Neil and Sheila had taken Tyler somewhere. I made coffee, real coffee, not the flavoured stuff Sheila kept in the cabinet. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You look different, decided," I said. She laughed a little. Then she got serious. "They're going to be angry." "I know. Neil might say things. I know that too." She looked around the kitchen. I saw her taking it in, the supplement containers still lined up above the stove, the sticky note still on the refrigerator, the smart lock app icon on the keypad by the door. "This is your house," she said quietly. Not a question. A reminder. The kind you say out loud to make it real again. "It always was," I said. The courier came on a Thursday. I was in the backyard when I heard the doorbell, so Sheila answered it. Through the kitchen window I watched her sign for the envelope without thinking anything of it. Then she looked at the return address and went still. She called for Neil. I came inside slowly, wiping my hands on a dish towel. They were both in the kitchen. Neil had the envelope open, the papers half unfolded, reading fast and then slower and then stopping. "This is from an attorney," he said. "Yes," I said. "Vera." He used my name the way he hadn't since he was a teenager, asking for something he knew he shouldn't have. "What is this?" "It's a formal notice of termination of residency, 30 days from date of delivery. Everything you need to know is in there." Sheila set her coffee mug down too hard. "You hired a lawyer?" "I did. Against your own son." I looked at her steadily. "I didn't hire a lawyer against anyone. I hired a lawyer to represent my interests in my own home. Those aren't the same thing." Neil put the papers on the table. He looked tired in a way that made me feel something I couldn't quite name. Not sympathy, not exactly, but something adjacent to it. An old love wearing thin. "Mum, where are we supposed to go?" "That's a fair question," I said. "It's one you should have been asking for the last 14 months. Sheila pushed back from the counter. "You can't do this. We have Tyler in school here." "We have 30 days, I said. "That's what the notice says, and it's more than the law requires." The kitchen stayed quiet for a long time. Then Neil said, "We'll contest it." "You're welcome to try," I said. "The deed is in my name. The mortgage was paid off in 2009. There is no lease, no agreement, no money exchanged. Your family, and I let you stay out of love. But love doesn't transfer ownership." I picked up my coffee mug. Peggy Oakes's number is on the second page if you want to discuss it with her. I walked out of the kitchen. In the living room, I sat down in my armchair, the wing-back one I'd reupholstered in 2017, burgundy fabric with the small brass tacks along the bottom that had been pushed into the corner to make room for the sectional they'd brought. I had moved it back 3 days earlier, quietly, in the afternoon when everyone was out. It fit exactly where it had always been, in the patch of afternoon sunlight by the front window. I sat in it now, straight-backed, and looked at the room. Behind me I could hear their voices, low and urgent, the kind of conversation that only happens when something real is finally on the table. Neil, "She can't just—" "Sheila, she has an attorney, Neil." A pause. Then Sheila again, quieter. "She's serious." I sipped my coffee. The next few weeks were strange and painful and clarifying in equal measure. Strange because the house that had felt invaded now had a different kind of tension, not the slow ambient compression of being pushed out of your own space, but something sharper, purposeful. They moved through the rooms carefully now, like they were aware for the first time that the floor belonged to someone else. Painful, because Neil is my son, and I love him, even now, even through this, even after everything. There were moments, him eating cereal alone at the kitchen table at 7 in the morning, looking out the window with the particular stillness of someone recalibrating, when I had to remind myself that kindness and clarity are not the same thing, that letting this continue would not have been kindness to either of us. Clarifying because Lacey came by twice that week, and both times she brought something. First, a small framed photo she'd found in my storage boxes, Roy and me standing on the front porch the day we closed on the house in 1986. I'm holding the key. He has his arm around my shoulders and is laughing at something the realtor said. And second, a pot of yellow mums she planted in the garden bed by the front step without asking, just showed up with a trowel and put them in. The rose bushes look good, she said, sitting back on her heels in the yard. I've been keeping up with them, I said. You always have. She put the mums in and washed her hands at the outdoor spigot, and we sat on the porch together in the October sun, not saying much. There was nothing that needed saying. She knew. I knew. The house knew. I hung Roy's photo above the fireplace. I had to take down the framed home print to do it, and I placed that carefully against the wall in the hallway so no one could say I'd thrown it. But Roy's photo went up in the spot where it had hung for 20 years before they arrived, where the paint was still slightly darker from the frame, where it had always been. I looked at it for a long time. His face, the way he was always caught mid-laugh in the good photos, never posed, always real. This house is yours, Vera. I knew that. I had always known that. I just needed to say it out loud. Tyler knocked on my bedroom door the evening before they left. He didn't come in, just stood in the doorway with his hands in his hoodie pocket, shifting his weight. He's 19. He has his father's guilt face and his grandfather's eyes, Roy's eyes, grey and direct. Grandma, he said, I didn't know it was bad. With you. I thought you were fine. I know you thought that, I said. I would have. He stopped. Started again. The cabinet. The bowls. I didn't know whose they were. They're mine. They were your great-aunt Helen's. He nodded, slow and uncomfortable. I'm sorry about that. I looked at him for a moment. 19 is young. Young enough to still be shaped by what happens next, if someone pays attention. Learn the difference between making yourself at home and making yourself the home, I said. There's a difference. It matters. He stood there for another second. Then he nodded again, more deliberate, and went down the hallway. The moving truck came on a Saturday. Not a big one. A rental van, the kind you see college students with in August. Neil loaded it with the help of a friend I didn't know, a younger man who carried things without speaking, and seemed to understand that this was not a festive occasion. Sheila organized boxes and directed without making eye contact with me. Tyler carried his own things, the weight bench, the gaming equipment, in quiet trips, not in a hurry, not dragging his feet. I stayed out of their way. I made myself breakfast, a real one for the first time in a long time, scrambled eggs, toast, sliced tomatoes from the last of the garden tomatoes, coffee in my good mug. I sat at the kitchen table in the chair by the window, the one Sheila had been taking for 14 months. The morning light came through exactly as it always had, falling across the table in a long, bright stripe. I didn't watch them go. I heard the van door, the engine, the sound of it pulling out of the driveway. Then silence. When I walked through the house afterward, it was a different kind of walking, not checking for damage, not cataloguing what was left, just remembering. The living room with the sectional gone, my furniture too sparse at first, but right, the guest room mattress bare, the walls with pale rectangles where their pictures had hung. My bedroom without the stack of Tyler storage boxes in the corner, the light coming in straight and clean. I got the ceramic bowls from my bedroom closet and washed them again, even though they were already clean. I put them back in the cabinet above the stove where they belonged. I stood on the step stool and placed each one carefully, the blue and white one that had been Helen's Sunday bowl, the small green one she used for fruit, the big yellow one with the chipped edge I'd always meant to fix. I stood in the kitchen and looked at them there. That's where Lacey found me when she came by at noon, standing at the kitchen counter with the cabinet open, just looking at the bowls. "Are they gone?" she said. "Yes," I said. She came and stood beside me, looked at the bowls. "Aunt Helen's, yes." We stood there a moment. Then she said, "I'll make lunch if you sit down." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to." She was already opening the refrigerator. "Sit, Grandma Vera." I sat down. She made grilled cheese, the good kind, with sharp cheddar and a little mustard, the way I taught her when she was 12. She put the plates on the table and sat across from me, and we ate without the television on, without anyone else's noise in the background, just the sound of the house settling, the furnace kicking on, the last of the season's leaves against the front window. A week later, I got a letter from Neil. 2 pages, handwritten, which surprised me. He's not a writer. Roy wasn't either. The letter was careful and a little formal in the way of someone who isn't used to saying difficult things directly. He said they'd found an apartment in Westerville, near enough to Tyler's community college that he could get there without the car on good days. He said he understood why I'd done what I did, even if he didn't like it. He didn't apologize, exactly. He said, "I know things got away from me. I should have paid more attention. That was close enough. That was as close as I needed it to be." I put the letter in the box with Roy's papers, not with the deed. That space is for documents, for proof, for the things that protect you. The letter went in the front, with the softer things, the birthday cards I've kept, Roy's last note to me, the receipt from the day we closed on this house, which I've kept because Roy said, "Keep everything," and I always have. The keypad is still on the front door. I called a locksmith the week after they left. He removed it in about 12 minutes and charged me $80, which I considered the best $80 I'd spent in a year. The old brass knob went back. I had the lock rekeyed. The only key is mine. In November, I had Lacey over for Thanksgiving. Just the 2 of us. I made the full spread, turkey, dressing, sweet potato casserole, the cranberry relish from the recipe card in Helen's handwriting that I keep in the drawer with the good spatulas. We ate at the dining room table with the good plates, the ones I'd moved to the top shelf when Sheila said the cabinet space was needed and moved back down the week after she left. It was quiet. It was good. It was the first Thanksgiving in 2 years, where I sat where I wanted to sit, and ate what I'd chosen to make, and said grace the way Roy taught me, short and direct, no performance. After dinner, Lacey helped me carry in a piece from the garage, the old rocking chair that had been in the corner of the living room since 1991, and somehow ended up out there during the reorganization. We set it by the front window, near the armchair. I put the knitted throw over the back, the one Roy's mother made, cream-coloured, slightly unravelling on one end, in a way I've never fixed, because fixing it felt like finishing something I wasn't ready to finish. "How does it look?" Lacey asked. I looked around the room, the photo above the fireplace, the rocking chair by the window, the knitted throw, the ceramic bowls visible through the kitchen doorway from where I stood. "Like mine," I said. "That's all I wanted. That's what I'd always wanted. Not victory, not punishment, not an audience for how wronged I had been. Just mine. Just the rooms and the light and the familiar hum of a house that knows you back. I'm 68 years old, and I have lived in this house for 38 years. I know which stair creaks third from the bottom. I know that the kitchen faucet drips for exactly 4 seconds after you turn it off. I know which windows stick in summer and which ones seal tight in winter, and where the damp patch comes back in the northeast corner of the basement every March, no matter how many times it's been fixed. I know this house, and now finally it knows me again. If you're somewhere in the middle of what I was in the slow compression of it, in the quiet of too many mornings, eating standing up in your own kitchen, wondering when it became acceptable for your name to be the last one considered, I want to tell you something. You are not imagining it. And you don't have to wait for someone's permission to say, this is mine, this is still mine, I remember. Because here's the thing they counted on, the thing people like Sheila, and in his own passive way, Neil always count on, that you won't know what to do, that you'll be too tired, too doubtful, too afraid of the word difficult, that you'll mistake your own patience for weakness and let them mistake it too. Don't. Patience is not the same as surrender. Silence is not the same as agreement. And a woman who has paid her own mortgage for 38 years, who has kept her husband's papers in a box in a closet because he trusted her to, who knows the combination and the contents and exactly what every document means, that woman is not fading. She's just been quiet longer than she needed to be. I've thought a lot about what I would say to someone standing where I was standing, 14 months in, eating yogurt over the kitchen sink because the chair was taken, finding my sister's bowls in the garage with a cracked lid, watching a stranger's app decide who could enter my own front door. I don't have a speech prepared. I don't think that's what people in that position need. What I think they need is someone to say, what happened to you was not an accident. It was a series of choices, theirs, and in some ways, mine. Every time I turned down the thermostat and Sheila turned it back up, and I said nothing. That was a choice. Every time Neil looked at his phone instead of at me, that was a choice. Every time I moved myself a little further into the corner, rather than hold the ground I'd earned, that was a choice too. I'm not saying I was wrong to be patient. Patience has its place. But I let patience become a habit I couldn't see past anymore. And the thing about people who take gradually is that they count on that. They count on your not noticing, or on your noticing and not acting. When you finally act, it surprises them. Sheila's face when she read the return address on that envelope, I'll remember it a long time. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because it told me how certain she'd been that I wouldn't. That certainty, that assumption, that's the thing that still sits with me. There's a kind of wisdom that doesn't announce itself. It just accumulates in paid-off mortgages and filed receipts and combination locks with anniversary dates, in a box on a shelf that nobody bothered to look at because nobody thought I knew what was in it. Roy knew what he was building when he labeled that box and taught me to keep everything. He wasn't preparing me for a lawsuit. He was teaching me that a person who knows what they own is a person who cannot be entirely erased. That's not cleverness, that's integrity. You take care of the things that matter. You keep the proof. You stay clear about what's yours, not out of greed, but because clarity protects you when everything else gets murky. And Lacey, I keep thinking about Lacey, 26 years old, showing up with mums and a trowel and a framed photo, saying nothing dramatic, just planting things and sitting with me on the porch. That's what loyalty looks like when it's real. It doesn't make speeches, it just shows up and stays. I hope she knows what that meant to me. I think she does. Neil's letter surprised me. 2 pages, handwritten. He's not a writer. His father wasn't either. But he tried, and trying counts for something. I don't know what comes next for the two of us. That story isn't finished. But I know that whatever it becomes, it had to start here, with the truth said out loud between us, even when that was hard for both of us. You don't rebuild anything real on a foundation of silence and assumption. You just don't. What I want to leave you with is this. The house didn't change. The rooms were the same. The faucet still drips 4 seconds after you turn it off. What changed was that I stopped acting like a guest in it. I stopped apologizing for taking up the space I had earned and paid for and kept for 38 years. That's not a lesson I learned from a book. It's one I learned from standing in my own kitchen, looking at my sister's bowls back in the cabinet where they belonged, and feeling the particular quiet of a house that finally recognizes you again. You don't need anyone's permission for that. You just need to remember what's yours and be willing to say it.